daily podcast on the Georgia Bulldogs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Bulldogs podcast. I am Daniel, and that's not Clint joining me today. The Weldon Brothers are on the pod. Fellas, welcome.
What's going on? Glad to be here.
Dude, it's so great. Long time listeners of the show. First time we've been able to have you on. I got to say, you've been lobbying for this opportunity for a while, and so you better not blow it at this point. Like it's a big risk for the pod. This is a huge podcast, fellas. I don't know if you know that, but just it's a huge deal that you would be invited onto this show. So I hope you're taking it seriously. Yeah.
You've taken on all the risk.
Yeah, I mean, clearly, I don't know. Clint's out of town, so at this point, the podcast is either going to sink or swim. Who knows what's going to happen? We'll just have to wait and see. Excited you're here. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. If you're new to the pod, Locked On Bulldogs is for fans by fans, and so we figure let's just have some fans on the podcast and talk, because that's the way that we talk every day on. We're not gurus or insiders, and we don't take ourselves too seriously, but we are big-time Georgia Bulldog fans, all of us here, Clint, my co-host, and I as well. So thanks for listening on audio, Spotify, Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks for joining us on YouTube. Thanks for leaving a comment. Colby's got his favorite jersey on display right there behind him, just hanging on the cinder block wall in whatever dungeon he's recording this video in. So if you're on YouTube, see that. Thanks for being with us. Thanks for joining us. It's Thursday, and we got some fun stuff planned for today. We're back into our prospects. We're going through the 2022 class, and so today we are talking about Malaki Starks, who is one of the biggest recruits in the entire country, much less in the entire Georgia Bulldogs class. And so excited to do that. Ask the boys what they think about Malachi Starks. But we'll be to this because, first of all, I've been getting betting advice from the Weldon Brothers all season long. Some great winners being given out by both of you. But the most recent bit of betting advice that I've gotten from the Weldon Brothers has really struck a chord with some of us, and it struck a nerve with others of us, because you are, if I'm understanding correctly, recommending that the good people out there take their hard-earned money to betonline.net and they wager it on the most controversial player to maybe ever play for the Georgia Bulldogs, Stetson Bennett IV. And you think that he's going to do what this season, Colby?
I think he's going to win the Heisman.
Okay. All right. Well, the floor is yours. Tell us why in the world we should think that.
All right. Well, first off, start off with the three biggest quarterback names in this Heisman, the too soon Heisman. We got Caleb Williams, CJ Stroud, and Bryce Young. Three big names, three good guys, three great athletes.
Yep. None of them have ever won a national championship, to my understanding.
No rings.
Okay, no rings.
Zero rings.
Nothing. No rings.
Former Heisman, though. So I want to say, first off, that Stetson Bennett, just quickly, stats-wise, lines up with these guys tit for tat. Bryce Young and CJ Stroud definitely threw way more volume than Stetson Bennett did by a few hundred passes. But Caleb Williams and Stetson Bennett specifically were right in line with each other. Stetson Bennett, 185 for 287, 64.5% for 2,800 yards and 29 TDs. Caleb Williams, 136 for 211, 64.5%, 1,900 yards and 21 TDs. Passer ratings, both of them 176 for Stetson Bennett, 169 for Caleb Williams. All right. So there is nothing you can say that would make me think that Caleb Williams has a better chance of winning the Heisman statistically. All right. CJ Stroud and
Okay.
Bryce Young, obviously better passers, way more touchdowns, way more volume. But you bring up those passer ratings again. All right. You got Bryce Young, your Heisman winner. Congratulations, Bryce Young.
Yeah.
167.5 passer rating compared to Stetson Bennett's 176.7 passer rating. So you can argue volume that Stetson Bennett hasn't thrown the passes, so he's not going to line up the same way that they do. But I say give him more volume. He's just gonna outshine. He's a winner.
I mean, wow.
It is what it is.
It's hard. It's hard to argue. He is winning,
and that's where go ahead.
Yeah, I'll interject here if I may. I think from just a perspective from the fan, I think this past year we haven't really digested this as fans yet. I think we're coming into a couple months here where we're going to be able to digest what happened in the process of the season. You mentioned him. I mean, Stetson Bennett's got to be the most controversial Georgia Bulldog. I think Isaiah Crowell would have an argument there, but he's got to be he's got to be close, if not right behind it. But Stetson Bennett is being viewed through the prism of JT Daniels. As time will tell, and we don't know. I think the answer to that question is we don't know. All we know is today, JT Daniels has decided to transfer out of the University of Georgia. Last I checked, he did not have a home.
No calls?
And the last article I've seen written about it had him landing potentially Georgia Southern was, I think, a name that was on there.
Hey, great program. Great program.
We have to take a step back, I think, this offseason as we prepare for the 2022, Georgia football season. And we're going to be seeing Stetson Bennett in an entirely different light come this season, saying, given that he's the starting quarterback, and we don't know that yet. But Colby, continue.
No, he's like you said, he's fifth year. He's a returning guy. He's coming back. He is coming off a national championship, 1-loss year. I think that one of the further points that people want to argue with Stetson Bennett, people hate his height and weight. They hate that he's 5'11", 190, just because everybody's 5'11", 190. You know who else is around that size? Russell Wilson, Kyler Murray, Johnny Football Manziel. Two of those guys are Heisman winners. One of them, elite quarterback in the NFL.
Wow.
And you look me in the eyes and tell me that Kyler Murray is 207. He's 207, soaking wet with a wool coat on, maybe, on a good day with a big meal. He's not 207.
He's not 5'11" either. He's
no.
5'9", maybe. I think it's a fair point that, like, what you bring up, we're going to be – there's a chance that we see Stetson Bennett in a whole new light. And 90% of winning the Heisman is random, stupid hype from ESPN. Like, that's what 90% of winning the Heisman is. And Georgia's going to be getting all that hype this year. All right. Georgia's no longer the program that's perennially a contender, but now they are the defending national champions. And we've talked about the schedule on this podcast. There's no reason to believe that they won't be sailing into week 8, week 9, week 10 of this season with an undefeated record, with another head-to-head clash against Alabama in the SEC championship looming. And the question is Stetson Bennett going to get enough volume because all those stats that you gave are great, but the Heisman is also, there's a reason why, why the guys like that have the high pass. There's a reason why guys like Bryce Young win the Heisman and guys like Caleb Williams don't, because the Heisman is a volume award.
Yeah, 537. That's a lot of passes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and you made a good point. I think when you guys were unpacking Branson Robinson and just talking about where the running back room sits in the wake of Zamir and James Cook. The running back room is in a really interesting spot. I think probably the most interesting it's been, maybe since Gurley's exit, but even then you had Chubb. there's a real weird spot that the running back room's in. Kendall Milton seems to be a guy that's going to get a lot of carries. Kenny Mack seems like he's going to get a lot of carries, but we do not have, even Zamir White coming into this year. You knew you had a steady presence at running back, no matter what, to be able to pound the ball in the Kirby Death March. We just don't know what we have at running back, which, to your point, leaves open the possibility for a higher volume through the air. And
it does. And
stars are aligning.
All right, look, have you seen a number? This is my question. Have you seen a number out there that the people could get? Stetson Bennett on?
There's a number.
Last time I checked, I'm pretty sure it was plus 5,000. So
okay, all right.
If
so you're telling me
money on Dogecoin, you might as well put on Stetson Bennett.
You just sprinkle a little bit on there, and we will just.
I'd cap it at like half a month's salary. That's where I'd probably cap it.
All right.
I'm not a doctor, but a $10 bet would get you what, Colby, on this?
I think it was a. I can't remember the number off the top of my head.
The one it would be 500 big ones.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's plus 5,000, 50 to 1. Yeah, that's half a month's salary. Just we need a disclaimer. The Locked On Bulldogs podcast does not advocate for betting half a month's salary on Stetson Bennett to win the Heisman. But I will say the logic is compelling. There are people in the comments right now, Colby, who are just fired up, yelling at you, and so I can't wait. I can't wait to read them.
My last point with it is, I think that the problem that people have with Stetson Bennett is that they can't believe that dude is a better athlete than they'll ever be or ever could have been. And number two, if you were one of the fans who booed our starting quarterback between the hedges, you need to pray and repent.
I think those fans already know. I think they know what. I think they've seen the light, and the light is a national championship in all its glory coming to Athens. All right, fellas, that is enough Stetson Bennett talk for this podcast. Let's move on and talk about Malachi Starks. But before we do, speaking of betting, we've mentioned it already, but betonline.net is the place that you would go to place any and all of these wagers. While I do not condone betting a half a month's salary on Stetson Bennett to win the Heisman, if you just sprinkle a little bit on there, listen, you can send Colby a thank you note after you cash out. betonline.net. It's the only place that Clint and I trust. It's the official partner, the betting partner of the Locked On Bulldogs podcast. Go there, make a deposit, enter the promo code Locked On. You'll get a bonus. They will give you free money. You use it to bet on March Madness, which is coming up. Use it to bet on the Masters. Use it to bet on college football futures, the NBA, if you're that kind of a guy, the NHL, whatever it is, the sport of your choice, betonline.net has it. You go there on your mobile, your desktop, betonline.net, the official sportsbook partner of the Locked On Bulldogs. All right, fellas, let's jump into Malachi Starks. Let's turn the page from offense to defense, from players from last year's team to players who are coming onto the squad. I don't care whichever one of you wants to start, but I'm just going to throw the general question to you. Malachi Starks, 5-star athlete, number one athlete in the country, one of the biggest prospects in all of high school football last year, coming to Athens. What excites you most about this guy? What should fans be the most excited to see from this kid as he makes his way to the Classic City?
Nate, you go ahead.
I think it's obviously what jumps off the page is the versatility. I think anybody who watches his tape, is going to see that he plays quarterback for Jefferson. Obviously was the number one safety in the state from an interception standpoint, and just also I think from a cover standpoint with most of the recruiting rankings. The fact that he can go in a 4A high school in a pretty loaded region and play both of those positions at the level he did gives you a really good feeling about what he can do heading down the road. Athens, and there's a chance, as we get into it later, there's a chance we'll see him play a few different ones, even on one side of the ball, but potentially, others, and it's not above Georgia to do that. So, the versatility's got to be the number one.
Yeah. What about you, Colby?
I agree. For me, it's the pairing of the size, the speed, how he closes space, how his overall. He seems like he has a really good football knowledge and just natural football IQ. He just happens to be in the right place at the right time often, and like I said, he could play a lot of different positions with being that 6 foot 205, 210. You can go a lot of places with that.
Yeah, and I think he's gonna come in as a safety. Some people project him to put on some weight and become outside linebacker, even an inside linebacker. There's a lot of places that this kid could go. Some people have got him playing like maybe a star, even because he's got the kind of speed and lateral quickness and side to side mobility that's going to allow him to play even a more versatile defensive back position. But I saw somewhere where one of the recruiting analysts had him ranked as the number 3 running back prospect in the 2022 class, ahead of Branson Robinson, who we talked about on the podcast the other day. So you're talking about a guy that, like, if Kirby wanted him to, he could shift over there and become a weapon on offense, catching the ball out of the backfield or carrying the ball. I don't think we're going to see him as an option quarterback in Athens, but I do think there's, which you guys mentioned, I do think there's some opportunity for versatility, even beyond just defensive versatility. I think he could play a little bit both ways, which, again, we've seen guys do that before with some success. Next big question is, do you think we will see that versatility in 2022? Lewis Cine obviously goes on to the NFL, but Christopher Smith is back. Do you think that there's availability or a pathway for Malachi Starks to see much playing time, if any, in 2022?
I think off the rip, like you said, with the star position, I think that's an immediate plug and play. Like, if you need somebody to fill that slot, I think he's got the perfect body size, skill for it. So I agree with the star. Like, I think that would be, if we see him this year, I think that's the most likely spot just to get him on the field. Plus special teams, obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Kirby is well documented that he will play, and you guys have talked about this with other player comps. He will play a lot of freshmen in the special team roles, assuming they're up to snuff. And the fact that he's here in the spring, he gets an entire spring camp to learn his position.
It's huge.
I think probably one of the most exciting things about him. I had a coach one time tell me that the easiest way to tell if a guy's a good athlete is to watch them get off the ground. And if you turn on the tape of him, I mean, I'm sure the coaching staff over at Georgia is going, this dude is just an absolute athlete. I mean, he can get up and down the field real quick. So opportunity on kickoff, opportunity on KOR, punt. I mean, punt return. You can see him in a lot of different places. And with that, the way that Kirby likes to rotate defensive backs, there's a really good chance he's going to be playing this year.
I think you got Tyke Smith presumably healthy, presumably back, and you would think that he would have a role on this defense if he's 100% and he's had a year in the system. And we thought we were going to see a lot of him last year, and unfortunately never really got the opportunity. But does Tyke slot in at safety next to Christopher Smith, and does that leave the star position open? Do we see Tyke playing more of that star that we expected him to play last year, and does that leave a potential safety spot available? Malachi Starks, certainly not the only name that would be thrown around in any of those spots. There's plenty of guys, but I might say if you of all the guys we've gone through on this list so far, and there have been several, and there have been some really good players. If I had to place a wager on one of the guys we've talked about so far, Marvin Jones Jr., Branston Robinson, CJ Washington, Malachi Starks now, if I had to place a wager on one of those guys to be an opening day starter, this would be the guy that I would take. Now, I still don't know that I think that's likely, but of all of those four guys, I think it's the most likely. I think he has the most potential but in terms of available playing time and his talent, I think there's potential.
I think
I agree with
the idea of him moving into the star role is probably actually a little bit more far-fetched than even him playing safety, just because of the fact that Tyke Smith's going to be back healthy. The fact that when we got the chance to see Javon Bullard, looked pretty darn good. So and those guys have SEC playing experience, and I mean, when you're rolling out, I think against Oregon, if you see any rotation at star, it's going to be between those two guys. However, at safety, there's really not a whole lot. There's not a whole lot in front of them. So potential for injury, and then also the potential as a secondary rotator at safety. I think that's probably the more likely scenario, even more than star.
All right. Those are interesting things to talk about, but let's talk about the ceiling. Let's talk about what this kid is going to become, who we project him as, because obviously we are experts when it comes to seeing these high school prospects and projecting them forward. And so let's give some very measured, very thoughtful, just some player comps of who this kid might become. And we'll do all that right after this. All right, fellas. Player comps. Who is Malachi Starks? At the end of his career, we look back and we say, maybe not in 2022, maybe not in 2023, but as we've gotten to know him, as he's gotten more experience, as he's gone on to the NFL, as he's had a great career, at the end of his career, we look back and we say, you know what? He kind of reminds me of who?
Take it, Cheese.
Well, I got a pretty tame one to start. There's a guy out of LSU by the name of Patrick Queen, who when he came out of high school, he was about 6 foot 209, and they brought him into LSU, made a linebacker out of him, and now he's in the National Football League, making money, doing what he loves. And I see a lot of comparisons between them. I think Malachi Starks could put on to get up to that 220, but even there have been some great linebackers come through that have only been around 215, 220. So I think Patrick Queen's a pretty good if they decide to put him up and move him down to a linebacker type role. I think Patrick Queen would be a good ceiling, if not just a base.
Okay.
I'll go with one that's a little more outlandish. Do you know who the highest paid safety in the National Football League was this last year?
Who's that?
It was a guy by the name of Buda Baker.
Ooh.
And Colby and I have the pleasure of playing against him in the Washington State high school football ranks.
How'd that turn out for you guys? Did that go well?
Just
pleasure, a pleasure.
If you can't sleep one night, just go take a look at the state championship in 2011, Mount Sinai High School versus Bellevue, and you'll see how that turned out. There's
tape we can watch.
There's tape. There's a lot.
Oh man, you love to see it.
He was the second best player on that team at the time. Second to Miles Jack. But there is something about watching that guy play football. His instincts, the quickness at which he's able to identify angles, and obviously his ball skills, just transferring from him playing running back in high school, and then also obviously becoming an incredible safety in the college ranks, and then on to the pros. And you watch those ball skills translate, and that's what creates I think as far as the defensive back goes, that's what creates the goods from the greats. That's what separates them is ball skills. You know, you got the athleticism. Everybody playing at this level does, but Malachi Starks, he's got the ball skills to be eventually. I mean, you ride this out, and he could be the highest paid safety in the National Football League one day. And we're talking about him, you know, playing for Super Bowls, you know, getting elected into Hall of Fames like Buda Baker probably will be doing here pretty soon one day.
Boy, but he's never taken down the Weldon Brothers, which really
he's taking us down. It's you know, you don't have to take anybody down if they just lay down in front of you.
Okay.
If you give yourself up, then
that sounds right.
Fight. Sideline's your friend.
Yeah.
Sideline's your friend. Well, Colby, I honestly thought we might be headed in a similar direction. Now listen, just hear me out. I love that you mentioned ball skills, Meethus, because that's where my mind goes when I think about athleticism. I think about what he can do with the ball in his hands. Third-ranked running back in this class by some, option quarterback, had the ball in his hands a lot at Jefferson, a lot in high school. All right. Now I know the body is not the same. And therefore I think maybe he would probably lack a little speed for this comp to really play out. But I think he has a lot of the ball skills and the ability to make plays with the ball in his hands that another former LSU defensive back, another former LSU safety has, and that is the Honey Badger, Tyrann Mathieu. That's the guy that when I look at this guy, I see a guy that could potentially change the game. I mean, I don't have to tell you, Georgia fans, Tyrann Mathieu could just mess up your whole day. He can just mess up. Like, you take a perfectly great December Saturday where you're just having a great time. You're just enjoying yourself and everything's going well and things in your life seem to all be falling into place. And then Tyrann Mathieu walks in and he just urinates all over everything. And it's over. That's the kind of ability that I see Malachi Starks having. If you put the ball in his hands, listen, he knows what to do with it. He's not trying to gain 5 yards or slide or go down. He's trying to score a touchdown. He's trying to go get the ball and make a play. And there's nobody, maybe in the history of college football, who is better at finding the ball and making a play than Tyrann Mathieu. So that's my comp.
That's 10 out of 10.
And I think that's what Kirby probably loves most about him and Muschamp. I mean, when you're looking at a guy that's a true ball hawk, I don't think we really had one on the back end. I mean, in a minute. I mean, I'm trying to think of the last true ball hawk that we had back there, and I mean,
there was a minute when you thought Richard LeCount was going to be that guy.
He didn't have the ball.
But he wasn't. Yeah,
doesn't have the ball skills. Love Richard LeCount, but doesn't have the ball skills. I mean, I'm thinking Brandon Boykin, maybe the last one that started that was really attacking the football in a way that, you know, it just seems to find his hand. Now, Keely Ringo, you know, let's wait and see. We can do a wait and see on Keely Ringo.
I've seen one particular set of balls. That's about all I'll ever need to see again from Keely Ringo. He's got my stamp of approval.
Yeah,
big time players make big time plays and make big time games.
That's right. But we're not talking about Stetson Bennett anymore, Colby. We moved on to talk about some other players now. All right, fellas. Look, this was good. This was a fun time. We're going to have y'all back on the podcast. I'm going to be honest. When we started this recording, it was 50-50. I'm not sure. I wasn't sure how it was going to go. But this is great. We're going to have y'all back on the podcast. I'm going to let Clint throw you some softballs, and you can make fun of him, and we'll all have a good time together. The Weldon Brothers, great fans of the Georgia Bulldogs. Really appreciate having you guys on. All of you, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Subscribe, follow, rate, review, tell a friend about the podcast, all those things. We'll be back tomorrow on Friday. I think John from John Tweet Sports coming back on the pod to chat about yet another prospect in the 2022 class. So we will see you guys then. See you, fellas.
See you.